2 lifelong friends, 1 local establishment. The hidden truth is out there, and we're going to talk about it. What happens in the bar no longer stays in the bar. This is Conspiracy Beerists.
All right, so everybody is quarantined, so we can't exactly get together for a beer to do Conspiracy Beerists at our local watering hole. So Brian and I are going to do this in studio and on the phone this week, and of course we probably both have beers. What's happening, Brian?
How you doing?
Living the dream. Living the dream.
The nightmare.
So, any thoughts about the whole coronavirus and whatnot before we dive into this week's conversation?
Well, there's all types of conspiracies to it, and you don't know who to believe. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I've been watching while I've been quarantining. That's pretty crazy.
Have you been playing with your Quarren weenie?
That's during every time of year.
No, you sent me a video, and forgive me, but I always forget this douchebag's name.
David Wilcox.
Yeah, and we weren't supposed to have internet or phone today. I guess that one was wrong.
Yeah, pisses me off.
I'm not surprised that other video that you sent me to watch, I couldn't even watch the whole thing. It was, and if people believe that, that's perfectly fine. It was a little.
I'm not sure. Which one was it?
It was the one with all the like Hillary as a guy, or excuse me, as Obama's wife as a guy, and.
Oh, yeah.
Hillary. I was like, you guys are all kind of stretching it, but it is what it is. We can talk about that when things get back to normal and have a little fun with it.
Yeah, Obama called his wife Michael before.
Well, maybe she dunked on him.
What's that? Yeah, when she dunked on him. She's got game.
She got something, I guess.
In fact, some people think that she's going to be the next one they pull out for Democratic president.
Yeah, we'll see. That's at least going to be 4 years down the line, because we know it's going to be Biden now. So,
yeah. But
we decided we wanted to talk a little bit about UFO and government cover-ups, and we're probably going to talk a lot about the granddaddy, which is Area 51. But you had mentioned when we were sort of planning that you wanted to talk a little bit about Foo Fighters too. So go ahead.
Oh, great. Yeah, they were during World War II, I believe, right? Against the Nazis.
Right.
And the Nazis had all types of... We actually got the scientists from the Nazis after the war. Supposedly, Russia was going after them, trying to keep them, because they came over here and they gained rank. The scientists did. And they got all types of, like Van Buren, the guy who created the rocket.
Right.
But this is my theory. They had a UFO crash before that war in Germany, and they probably reverse checked it out, and then
reverse engineered.
Yeah, reverse engineering. And then they come over here, and all of a sudden we got a UFO crash. And then now people are saying that all these UFOs that we see in the sky are probably just us.
That's one of the theories that I hear, but there have been reports before that even happened. There was an interesting case and I'm forgetting the town in Texas, but It was in the 1800s, and it was actually an article in the newspaper that an object with somebody in it crashed in the town, and the local people, the local public, took the body and buried it in the local cemetery. I wish I could remember what the name of the damn town was, but whatever.
Was it an alien though?
Yeah, they're saying it was a UFO that crashed, and it had one dead alien in it. And I guess I could bring it up since we're just kind of sitting here talking, but you're right. They were big. The Foo Fighters were big in World War II by both the Nazi or the Axis pilots. Yeah, the Axis pilots and the Allied pilots.
Right.
And we did have an alleged crash in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico, which just so happened to be the hot spot for the nuclear bomb testing.
Yeah. And that's what they're trying to do, is stop all the UFOs. They come up and suck all the nuclear energy out of the bombs or something, just to stop them from running. Like they'll shoot down rockets that are going into outer space because they think it's a bomb. I mean, it's all theory, but that's why we're here.
It was in Aurora, Texas. If anyone wants to look it up, look up the Aurora, Texas UFO incident in 1897.
Wow.
See, I can Google and talk at the same time. The big thing to me with Roswell is the way the story shifted back then, because it was immediately released to the public through the press.
Yeah.
And within a matter of 24 hours, everything got shut down.
Yeah, it's a weather balloon.
Right. So, and then in the corresponding years since, they've gone through 3 or 4 different explanations of what it was. Different types of weather balloons. It was a Russian spy plane, something or other, and
unreal.
And what kills me is they like to talk about qualified witnesses, and one of the biggest qualified witnesses was their own Army intelligence officer, Jesse Marcel, that made all these claims, and they just kind of buried him.
Right. Did he die?
He died, I think, in 1979 of like lung cancer.
Okay.
And that's kind of when Roswell took off again, because he sat down and wrote a book with some writer, and that's how Roswell came back to the forefront of the ufology conspiracy angle.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I will say is they always said, or the conspiracy theorists, or the claim is that the UFO that crashed in Roswell and the bodies went from Roswell to Texas to Ohio. And I'm sure I told you this before, but my uncle was stationed in that base in Ohio, and though he never said he'd seen it, he claimed that he'd been told that UFO was in Ohio until they opened Area 51.
Oh, okay. Another thing I hear is that Area 51 is just a ploy. Like, there's 17 other bases that lead to it underground. Like, I can't remember all of mine. Dulles or whatever. Have you ever heard of Phil Schneider?
I have not. Who's that?
You can Google him, but YouTube him too. But he actually got into a gunfight with these aliens. He said he killed 2 of them, and he's got 3 fingers on his one hand because they shot him off or something. But he ended up getting killed by the police by murder-suicide or whatever.
Ah. Well, it's kind of like the Thomas Mantell case from 1948, I think. The first one where an Air Force pilot, chased UFOs and they had it on radar, and then he was like going straight up chasing this thing, and then next thing you know, the UFOs were gone off radar and he just went straight down.
Wow.
But
that's crazy.
They blamed that it was pilot error. So yeah, okay, whatever.
All right.
Now, one of the other big ones that kind of got swept under the rug was right over Washington, D.C. in 1952. There were all these lights that appeared over the Capitol, and they had
I remember.
Hundreds of people that reported it and whatnot.
Weren't they shooting at it?
Yeah, they deployed planes to go chasing after it, and then the next day in the paper they were claiming it was all just some weather inversion or something like that.
Come on.
So why do you think, I mean, we see all the conspiracy shows and everything. Why do you think government would keep the existence of UFOs or aliens from the general public?
A lot of people say that would ruin religion, and that people would quit their jobs and quit paying bills and everything because it'd be chaos, like the corona.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we didn't quit our jobs. We didn't have a choice.
Right. When's the last time this has ever happened?
Never. It's like I posted on Facebook the other day, was nobody under the age of 80 have ever experienced anything like this before.
Isn't that nuts? Now, did you hear of Event 201? I know it's off the UFO thing, but...
No, go ahead. What's 201?
Event 201.
Sorry.
It was a... sorry. It was a group of... the UN and the WHO put together a board meeting, like a board.
Right.
At Johns Hopkins University. And this was in October of 2019. And they all talked about what would happen if there was a pandemic. Well, they were all talking about it. Like, they have a person that does the social media part, like how they would have to stop all the fake news from coming in and stuff like that. Well, a month or two later, we have one. It's unreal.
Well, I know you and I sort of differ a little bit on the whole COVID-19 thing. Actually, we haven't technically sat down and talked about it, but I know you lean more towards the Chinese had something to do with it.
China.
Or, yeah, China. Sorry, not just the Chinese, but...
The Kung flu.
Whether it be cover up or not. That's a Sting and Dune moment.
Is a good one.
I just think we were collectively caught with our pants down, and that's why we're in this situation now.
Yeah. Like I said, nobody's ever been through it before, but they always programmed it to become. And it seems like every movie on Netflix has something to do with a pandemic.
Oh, so what are you saying? Hollywood was in on it?
They may have. Tom Hanks, he got the corona, him and his wife, in Australia, right?
Right.
There's a video on YouTube where he said he took his typewriter there because it was one of his favorite typewriters. You know what type of typewriter it was?
COVID? I don't know.
Corona.
What?
So it's a picture of a Corona typewriter, and then he says, he says, we're getting better. We're still feeling blah, blah. This is a Twitter or something like that. And then he says, bad news. His wife is beating him at gin rummy by 201 points. So, like, event 201.
So you're saying Tom Hanks is in on it?
He is.
Or he's
not in on it, but he's part of the, like, having people try and get vaccinated or whatever. He will be. So and Bill Gates is part of it, too. You know that, right?
Yeah, you sent me something about that, and I was going to ask you, so go ahead.
A while ago, see, all these big dogs, rich people are into population control, which this could have a ton to that. And he was on a TED Talk. He was talking about dropping the population down, making it so that we would have enough carbon dioxide or something like that in the air. And he said with vaccines and other things, we can drop that number down because there's 6.8 billion people in the world. He's like, we could drop that number down and we could have this make work, you know? So people are kind of like, what? Oh, nice.
So do you think it's just a conspiracy, or do you actually believe that there's some truth behind they're using COVID-19 as a population control, whatever?
Yeah, it's for control. It's like you listen to all the TV news, mainstream media. They're overblowing everything. Supposedly they're actually writing COVID-19 as the killer of almost everything. Everything that dies. And there was a doctor actually went on like a city news, like news channel that, you know, does it like for the city or whatever. And he got on there and he said that the WHO called him and was coaching him how to fill out the death certificates. And he's like, I've never ever had to been coached before, but they were telling him that, you know, COVID-19. So if it's just the flu, it's COVID-19.
Well, mine isn't COVID-19. Mine is just seasonal allergies now, but that also kept me from working. So whatever.
Right.
I'm still getting paid. So
all you got to do is sneeze and get the day off.
Well, yeah, sneeze or just have runny eyes because, you know, things are blooming here in springtime now. So everybody looks at you sideways.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
So
crazy time.
Do you put any credence into the fact that it might be something that was leashed to do that, or is that just something you think is a kind of crazy conspiracy?
Probably a crazy conspiracy, but I'm sure it's partially right. They're shooting people in China that were trying to get into the hospitals. Did you see that?
I actually didn't read it, but I seen an article as I was scrolling past one day on the internet, but I didn't read it.
Yeah.
It was one of those days where I was sick of COVID news, so I was like, keep scrolling.
Right. That's all there is.
Oh, look, here's another mock draft for the NFL that's going to be pointless. I'll read that instead.
You hear they might be bringing baseball back in April.
I heard it was May is what the earliest. Yeah. And having
in Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona and Florida having 3 different divisions instead of having 2 leagues, but I'll believe that when it happens.
Right.
So, going back to the UFO thing, one of the other ones I wanted to bring up was in England, actually, in 1980, and it was the Rendlesham Forest incident, which was a U.S. base in England. And
right.
They have an audio recording, which I had at one point, and I'll dig it up to see if I can play some of it on this podcast. But the base commander and one of the sergeants actually says on the recording while they're walking through the woods looking for this light that they see it. It's making all these weird moves. And then
it was coming toward them, right?
Right.
Yep.
And then, of course, after the fact, you get everybody saying, people touched it, and that was never confirmed or anything. But it was like one of those things that got buried a week or a day or so later, and all of a sudden, this colonel that actually made the recording was coming out saying, "Nope, I wasn't even there. I was at home that night." It's like, okay.
So crazy.
So who the hell's voice is on this recorder then?
Yeah, and why did you get the tape?
Straight ahead, in between the tree. There it is again. Watch, straight ahead off my flash right there. Oh, there it is. Hey, I see it too. What is it? We don't know, sir. So you gotta try this one. Yeah, it's a strange, small red light. You'll see out maybe a quarter to half mile, maybe further out. I'm gonna switch off. The light is gone now. It was approximately 120 degrees from the site. Is it back again? Yes, sir. Oh, that's the flashlight set. Let's move out to the edge of the clearing so I can get a better look at it. See if you can get the star scope on it. The light's still there, and all the barnyard animals have gotten quiet now. Yeah, we're heading about 110 to 120 degrees from the site out through to the clearing now. Still getting a reading on the meter. About 2 clicks. Maybe count 3 to 4 clicks, getting stronger. Now it's coming up. Hold up, there we go. We're about approximately 4 foot off the ground. Concept of 110 degrees. All right, just turn the meter off. Gotta say that again. About 4 feet off the ground, about 110 degrees, getting a reading of about 4 clicks. Yes, sir. Yeah, but it's dying. No, it's not. I think it's something other than the ground. I think it's something variable. A tree right over. That's from the first nightbird we've seen. We're about 150 or 200 yards from the site. Everything else is just deathly calm. There is no doubt about it. There's some type of strange flashing red light ahead. I saw a yellow tinge in it too. Weird. It appears to be maybe moving a little bit this way. Yes, it's brighter than it has been. It's coming this way. It is definitely coming this way. Pieces of it are shooting off. There is no doubt about it. This is weird. To the left. Yeah, definitely moving off. Two lights. One light to the front, one light to the left. Keep the flashlights off. There's something very, very strange. Get the headset on. See if it gets any stronger. Okay. Give us some. Well, the notation that this is on a beta reading too. It's on a beta reading? Okay. It still has been removed. Okay. Pieces are falling off it again. It just moved to the right. Yeah. Off to the right. Strange. Oh, well, why get left? Let's approach to the edge of the woods up there. Can you want to do it without lights? Let's do it carefully. Come on.
I just don't understand what I know you said earlier it was about they thought, society would break down if
Right.
if UFOs landed, but
I don't think so either. I think we end up getting, because there is an alien agenda coming for disclosure or whatever, right?
allegedly. I mean,
Allegedly, right. But then they can fake that with those holographic images. Remember how they did Tupac and Michael Jackson?
right. Do the
Well,
concerts.
they could do that up in the air and say it's what it is. Another thing was free energy. People are thinking that we're going to get free energy if that happens, which is Looney Tunes, but that'd be nice.
Well, it just kind of amazes me that, and we're kind of circling back and forth between the UFOs and what's happening with the world and COVID right now, but it amazes me that this pandemic breaks out and all of a sudden the gas prices drop like $1.50. I filled up my car last week for $13. That's probably the first time I've done that. And
Since Pennzoil?
yeah, exactly.
It was $3 then.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, how you doing?
It just kills me that they keep talking about this energy shortage, but when something like this happens, all of a sudden, instead of a scarcity, you would think that the price would go up because it was so hard to get.
Right.
But now all of a sudden, it's like $1.23 a gallon as opposed to almost $3.
It's a scam.
Yeah, but
I heard that Russia and Saudi Arabia were arguing about some sort of oil thing.
Yeah, it was like a price war or something they were having.
Yeah. Which is crazy. Why drop the price of gas? I guess if you're sitting at home, you can't use the car as much.
Yeah, I guess. Because I will guarantee you the minute that this eases up or dies down or goes away or however you want to word it, I guarantee you within a week the price of gas is going to go back up over $2 a gallon.
Oh, yeah. And supposedly we're drilling it here in America, and we're the biggest exporter of oil now. Did you hear that?
Well, I know there was a bunch in Alaska, and I know originally there was a whole bunch in Texas, but I thought those had almost all dried up.
Right. It's crazy, man. I have watched a lot of conspiracy stuff though on the last week.
What we were talking about the UFOs and stuff, and one of the first things we talked about, one of the first videos you shared with me, was about the guy that claimed that, I think it was in England, where he went through this tunnel and then stepped through some doorway and he was on Mars or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the guy's name was, but
I think it was just one of his buddies or something, right? Or someone he talked about. There was another one just recently that I seen that this guy is actually talking to David Wilcock, and he talked about being on an escalator that hauled ass through this vacuum tube. It's crazy, man.
See, stuff like that I don't even believe, because it gets almost taken directly from science fiction movies and novels and stuff, because there was an Arthur C. Clarke book way back when where he had a diamond tether going from the Earth to the moon, and that's how people got up to the moon.
Wow. It's amazing.
But the video you had me watch with David Wilcox the other day where he said we weren't going to be able to have this conversation today because the internet and phone lines were going to be down.
Right.
And it just, I mean, that guy comes up with some interesting stuff, like we talked about the California fires and stuff, and that was interesting, yeah, which is another alien aspect. And but then he says crap like this, and you're like, dude.
Yeah. It's in 4 days. You want to ruin your shit like that.
And then he threw the qualifier out that, you know, and it might not happen. So if it doesn't happen, don't be surprised. Okay, now you're starting to sound like these doomsday preachers from the 1800s.
Yeah.
Let's say the world's gonna end, and then the date shows up and the world doesn't end. It's like, well, I didn't mean this day. I meant that day.
Yeah, they changed the calendar since then. I forgot.
Yeah, they were going by the Mayan calendar, apparently.
But the reason that he's talking about that, he's talking about the Q Army. You heard about that, right? Remember I told you about QAnon?
Yep.
So that's what they're saying is going on. They're around arresting people for crimes against humanity, like big people. And they think that would draw chaos from people, too.
Well, it is kind of interesting that I haven't heard of it here in Michigan yet, but I know there are other states that they're not arresting people, but they're ticketing people for being out in public.
Oh, really?
So,
yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's people driving around Walmart though packed.
Yeah, I went to Kroger after work today, and that place was mobbed.
It's crazy. Now at Speedway though, they can only allow 2 people in at a time.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
That'll help.
Yeah, because I go to Speedway by work every morning for coffee, so
Yeah.
the chick better just open the door and hand it to me then, because.
Right.
So, if there is aliens and they have landed here or working with the governments that be, what do you think they're thinking right now? Like, we knew this virus was going to happen.
The aliens,
Right.
they are scared of everything we have down here, supposedly. Like everything, all the bacteria and stuff can kill them that we have normally.
What, so why would they come here?
I guess our resources, I don't know. Plus we're slaves. Yeah, water, I don't know why they come here.
That was the old VTV or miniseries, was that they came here for the water.
Was it the V? Is that what you said?
V, yeah.
Yeah, the Dracos. The reptilian people.
Right, exactly.
You know? And that could be predictive programming.
So do you think a lot of these theories that we hear about, like you said, the predictive stuff and some of these supposed underground bases and secret aircraft and stuff are all alien back engineered stuff?
Probably most of it. Like the underground military bases are called DUMBs, DUMBS, and or maybe just DUMB, I don't know. But it's something underground military base. But they're teaching soldiers to do underground fighting right now.
Like
it's a subterranean warfare or something. So they're going to be going down in tunnels. I guess there's tunnels all over the country and world.
So was it like ground warfare, or do they teach them like Star Wars type warfare?
I've seen something like that. It's just like they'll go to, I guess they have underground bases, you know, everywhere. There's like 100 and something in America. This is what that Phil Schneider guy said. And that's where he got in a firefight with one of the aliens. That's just craziness. But they have these tunnel makers that melt the rock so they don't have to cement it, so it just stays. It's a laser that melts, it grinds it, you know, puts a hole and then melts the top so it's all doesn't crumble.
Right.
So that's probably alien reverse engineering stuff, I imagine.
I know we've sort of passively talked about it before, but I think in a future episode we should talk about the people that believe that we actually do live in the Matrix.
I know, it kind of confuses me. I mean, I've seen the Matrix, obviously, but it's confusing to me why they think that.
Well, it's the same people that believe that we don't live on the outside of the earth. We live on the inside, and all the sky and stuff that we're looking at, we're looking up at the ground of the earth.
Maybe. It's weird.
So, I guess to wrap things up, what are your what is your overall view of government cover-ups of UFOs? Do you think they cover it up because they're using them for the technology, or do you think they're covering it up because they're real, or they're not covering it up, they're just telling you the truth, there is no aliens?
I think they're covering it up because, like I said earlier, the chaos, it could, like, I don't think it would cause that much craziness where, like, it would ruin religion and all like that. I think people say that God made the universe, so he made them too. Yes.
Yeah, I guess if there's a God and he created everything, why wouldn't he make them too?
Right. Just a little bit better at things than we are right now.
So what do you want to talk about in future episodes? Is there anything that's been going on that you want to discuss, or do you want to take
We
another?
should probably get into this COVID.
I mean, yeah, we could do a full-fledged COVID thing, but I think we should wait until it's over so we can start getting
Right.
the real kooky conspiracies to come in.
Yeah. But like I said, Pizzagate's huge. I always want to do that.
All right,
'Cause
well,
it's real.
I'll start looking into that more.
Okay. I'll send you some stuff.
Any final words for the crowd before I shut things off?
Get on YouTube and do your research. Look into Q, Phil Schneider, X-22 report, and Edge of Wonder. There you go.
And that's just about going to wrap it up for this episode of Conspiracy Beerist. We appreciate you listening, and we're not exactly sure with everything going on with the pandemic when exactly we're going to be able to get back into the bar to have our normal what gets said in the bar no longer stays in the bar chat. But until then, we'll keep doing it this way, and hopefully you don't mind and you're entertained. If you have any thoughts about UFO cover-ups or the growing COVID-19 conspiracies, or maybe there's a conspiracy that you enjoy that you're interested in that you'd like Brian and I to look into and talk about on a future podcast, let us know on our Facebook page at Conspiracy Beerist. And until next time, the truth is out there. You just have to know where to look. Have a good day, everybody.
WLLP, Spock Rock Radio.